Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on Forza Horizon 2 with the new Porsche 918. Now I could, like everybody else, compare these three hypercars. I believe it is the first time these three have all been in the same game. And of course, the Top Gear have the long-awaited rivalry between these three. But there are more hypercars than just the Porsche 918, the Mclaren P1 and the LaFerrari. Because let's not forget about this lot over here. We have got the Hennessey Venom, the unofficial fastest production car in the world. We have the Bugatti Veyron, the fastest production car in the world. Lamborghini Venino, incredibly expensive and utterly bonkers looking thing. The Koenigsegg Agera. Unfortunately, we don't have the Koenigsegg 1.1 thing, because that would be great fun for this, but we don't have that. But we do have the Koenigsegg Agera, again, another ridiculously fast car from the Swedes. And we have got the Pagani Huyra. We're going to put this lot up against each other and see what car comes out on top. But I shall start by taking a look at the Porsche itself. And the first thing that I will say about the 918 is it's probably the best looking car here. As much as I love the crazy of the Venino, it's certainly not to everybody's taste, and I do like the aggressive nature of the Hennessey Venom, but I couldn't say it was a better looking car than this Porsche. The likes of the McLaren and the Ferrari. Ferrari looks particularly odd from some angles. The McLaren just doesn't really do it for me, whereas this car I've yet to find an angle that it doesn't look good from. It's, I think it's an incredibly good-looking car. It sounds fantastic, and I love the exhausts sort of coming out at the top there. It's like a very TVR thing to do. It's not very Porsche-like to have exhausts in a in a strange place, but it looks very cool, especially when the car is spitting flames. Sorry, yeah, I think it's an absolutely exquisite-looking car. It does kind of look quite a bit like the Koenigsegg Agera. I have to say there are some similarities between the pair of them, but yeah, I definitely prefer the 918. Now, as far as power goes, well, this car is only the 6th most powerful vehicle here, amazingly. Not very often you say that about a Porsche 918, but it has a mere 887 horsepower. However, it is four-wheel drive, so all of that power can be put down on the road absolutely immediately. And to make up for the slightly less horsepower, there is an absolute mountain of torque. Only the Venom and the Veyron have more torque than this car. It has 829 foot-pounds of torque, which is 200 more than the LaFerrari and the McLaren, while it's only sort of 40 or 50 horsepower down on them particular cars. The one thing that did surprise me about this vehicle, and will probably surprise you if you don't know the statistics, this is the second heaviest car here, only beaten by the Veyron, and let's not forget that is a huge, great big beast of a thing. It weighs 3,700 pounds. That's quite a lot of weight. It's 1,000 pounds heavier than the Venom. It's sort of 700 pounds heavier than the LaFerrari, sort of 300 to 400 pounds heavier than the other cars, depending on which one you compare it to. That's a lot of weight. It is a lot heavier than the Venino. It's 400 pounds heavier than the Venino. Venino is, I think, a bigger car and also four-wheel drive. I'm not quite sure what it is that is so heavy in this Porsche, but it does weigh quite a lot. But you would never guess that from driving it. It is a lovely, easy car to drive. It really doesn't take too long to get the hang of this car and to drive it really very, very quickly. Being four-wheel drive, it is remarkably forgiving despite the huge amount of power and huge amount of torque. Yeah, it's an incredibly easy car to go quickly, a very forgiving car. If you get things wrong, as I'm about to, coming through these fast corners, get it a little bit wrong on the bumps, the car gets dragged across and sideways across the grass at 160 miles an hour, and it's fine. If I'd done that in any other car, I would have gone round and had an incredibly large accident. But in the Porsche, no, it can deal with it. It is an absolutely lovely car to try and drive around a circuit. But the first thing to put these cars to the test, we're going to do a drag race at the airport. We have all 8 of them lined up here. Now, you would imagine the Venino, the Veyron, and the Porsche are always going to get the best launch, and sure enough, the Veyron is off. Being four-wheel drive, they're always likely to get off the line better than the rest of them. Then comes the Venom's power, as it's just in a different league, the Venom. It's gone, and it's chasing after the Veyron. Then we have the Agera's speed, that's setting off after them. The McLaren goes past. The Ferrari was catching and then probably runs out of pace. When we get to about 190 miles an hour, the Ferrari just catches the Porsche. It just runs out of straight line speed at around there. And the Huyra does beat the Venino eventually. Venino, not the quickest car here in a straight line. Again, the Venino is a 740 horsepower Lamborghini, and it's struggling for speed with this group of cars. Next time around, I actually beat the Veyron to 60 miles an hour, just about, and then after that it's gone. You just can't compete with the power of the Veyron. Nothing can compete with the Venom. It's incredibly close at the front between the pair of them. The Venom just spends too long spinning its wheels. Now comes the Mclaren and the Agera. They've just got slightly better speed than this Porsche. McLaren just fractionally beating me. The LaFerrari, again, it just runs out of steam. You can see how close between the Veyron and the Venom. About 10 more meters on the finish line, and the Venom would beat the Bugatti. It's just that launch. It's just the wheel spin from the Venom that does it over. But drag racing, of course, is only one part of this. The next test will, of course, be a circuit race. Now, we're initially going to have all 8 of them racing. The problem is that this is quite hard to get a definitive answer because, well, grid position can often determine quite a lot with these sorts of cars. Certainly, if the four-wheel drive cars, if like you see here, me and the Bugatti starting right at the very front. If we start at the front, we can absolutely launch away from the cars behind. They get caught up fighting with each other, and then we have a fairly straightforward victory, provided, of course, we don't make any silly mistakes. It's, not really a massively useful scientific test in some ways. And, of course, we've got all sorts of different driver skill levels through here. Everybody's pretty quick, but there's still sort of variations between people. With this particular race, with me and the Veyron at the front, I can keep up with the Bugatti through the turns, as you would expect. This circuit is actually not too bad for cars like the Veyron and the Venom, because there is a very long straight here, and the other corners, they're not terrible corners for the cars. I mean, the Veyron does struggle through this long turn, but they're not sort of really long, high-speed corners. So, yeah, the Veyron was okay there, and in the end, I would lose that race to the Veyron. The next race, me and the Ferrari would miss a checkpoint, and we would end up at the back, and then would start squabbling between us over the 7th place. It was a similar story between these two cars. I could be braver through the corners, and then the second we got to any sort of straight, the Ferrari was just quick enough to get away. A longer straight and I would probably start reeling him in, but even with a terrible run onto this course, even out wide on the grass, and there goes the Ferrari. I mean, if this straight was a lot longer, then yeah, I would start reeling the Ferrari in. It runs out of puff at about 190 miles an hour, but we're only getting up to 180 here. I think the Venom and the Bugatti were getting past 200. In fact, pretty sure the Venom was getting well past 200 down there. But it's just not a long enough straight for me to catch the Ferrari, and I am quick through the corners, but I just couldn't find a way past as the Ferrari defends through here. Ferrari is still a good handling car, provided he doesn't make any mistakes. He can defend through here, and then by the time we get to the straight, he will simply breeze back past me. I am closer this time round, having a look. Ferrari goes a bit brave across the dirt, gets a bounce, and ends up out a little wide. I go for the around the outside into the final corner. It's a little bit of a brave manoeuvre, and there's some very expensive bumping going on, but I still can't do it. I have the grip and so on, but the Ferrari is just too fast in a straight line. For the third race, we had the Veyron and my Porsche were at the back of the field, so we were now having to work our way through the order. I get myself up the inside of the Koenigsegg while I've got the pass done off the final turn. I've just got much better drive with the four-wheel drive. He has to wait to put the power down in that Agera. There comes the straight line speed again. In that car, it is a very fast car in a straight line. He does get it stopped and turned in, but then it's very sideways on the exit of the corner. I can boot it, use all of my power instantly in the Porsche, and we've got the position in front of me. The Veyron is battling with the Huyra that's had a better start to this race. You can see how far back I am here from the Pagani. Only takes a couple of corners with the Pagani getting is a little bit wrong through one of them, and the Porsche is now right here. The Veyron's running a little bit wide, having enough. I'm at the inside of the Pagani. In the course of that lap, I'd now caught up right to the back of the Veyron, but then we were going to run out of laps to catch the lead pair. I think it was the Venom and the P1 that were leading this time round, as the Veyron has buggered off again in a straight line. yeah, it was good fun racing all of these cars, but not particularly scientific. So I set out a little test. We're going to go around two very different circuits. The first one, the Citadel Circuit. A fantastically windy, twisty, probably one of the toughest circuits in Horizon 2 for the handling of the cars, because there is no straights here. You may get up to 140, 150 miles an hour with a car, but there is no proper straights around this circuit. It's all turns. A lot of them are slow speed turns. There's a couple of sort of more medium speed corners. We've got some hairpins that the four-wheel drive cars like this Porsche are likely to do better at. I can just, once you've got the car turned, you boot it, no problems. It just absolutely fires it out the other side. That bit there is the closest thing we have to a straight on this circuit. Even then, it's not particularly straight. Yeah, each car was given 6 laps in the Porsche, setting the benchmark time of a 51.5. Up next, the Lamborghini Venino. I love the way this car drives. This is literally, if you had my driving style in a car, this is it. It's yeah, it's just how I like to have a car. How I like to have a car sort of handle. Yes, it can be quite understeery for people that aren't used to it, but the way that I tend to drive my cars, I like to know. I like that understeer. I know exactly where the limit is, and the car is perfectly planted. It is so nice to drive through these sequence of corners, and what being four-wheel drive again, we can put all of the power down. Admittedly, a mere 740 in this car. It's not as fast accelerating as the Porsche or the McLaren and so on, but it is very good through the turns and has very, very good brakes. It gets stopped incredibly quickly, and then again, we boot it straight out to the other side. There is no wheel spin, no sliding at all in the Venino. It sounds fantastic as well. Really nice engine in this car. It is only a fraction off the Porsche. That's yeah, not far behind. From the lovely to drive Venino to the Bugatti Veyron that isn't lovely to drive at all. It's not the brakes in this car, surprisingly, that were causing me issues. A £4,000 car with this much speed, often worried about getting it stopped. The brakes weren't too bad. I mean, no, they're not as good as the Veninos, but they weren't utterly terrible. It's the miles and miles of understeer you get in this car. You just can't carry any speed through the turns. While the Venino, yes, it understeers, you can actually carry a lot of corner speed when you get it right. In this, you just can't. Turn 1 is especially bad. Through the hairpins, we're not too bad, provided you've slowed it down enough. And of course, once you've got it out of the hairpins, it's very, very quick accelerating. Because again, with four-wheel drive, we've got almost 1,200 horsepower in this car, and you can pretty much boot it in second gear and have no problems because of the four-wheel drive. But the understeer is so chronic around here. As yeah, turn 1 again having more issues. The Veyron struggled, and that's perhaps not too surprising at this particular circuit. Onto the rear-wheel drive cars, and the Mclaren P1 was up first. These much prefer the first section of the lap through turn 1 and all the way up here. The rear-wheel drive cars are much nicer. You can just carry more speed because there is absolutely no understeer in them at all. We do get potentially some wheel spin coming up over the crest. The McLaren is pretty good though. Despite the fact we have 900 horsepower going to the rear wheels of this car, it stays remarkably planted, even out of these hairpins. It's not. You will get a little bit of. You can get a lot of wheel spin if you're a moron. If you're careful, you can do it. You can get it out of the corners without any wheel spin, without any sliding and so on. But it's just not quite as quick through that section as the four-wheel drive cars. It's all about, can you make up the time through the first corners? The McLaren can. And of course, these cars have still got absolutely phenomenal brakes. You are braking so late into these corners. The LaFerrari would go next. 963 horsepower in this car. More power than the McLaren, less weight. The second lightest car out of this lot at just over £3,000. This one is perhaps a tiny little bit more slidey. Certainly over the crest, you see me fighting with it a bit more, but the corner speed you can carry in this Ferrari is incredible. If you get it right, you can carry so much speed, and it is very fast accelerating out of these turns. Once you've got it turned and we're accelerating down here again, it's a very, very quick car. It doesn't have the straight line speed of the other vehicles, or the ultimate straight line speed of the other vehicles, no, but around a track like this, it is absolutely phenomenal car to drive. I really liked the Ferrari around here. Very nice into turn 1 and so on. Yeah, a really very impressive car. Now to the slightly more scary of vehicles, the Koenigsegg Agera, a very powerful car. This one, yet again, 946 horsepower, 811 torques, 3,100 pounds. So yeah, it's right up there with the power figures, but it's not quite up there with the sort of sophistication level in the handling. You can see how much more I'm fighting this car than I was with the Ferrari. It is better than I expected. You can also see by the amount of sort of tyre skid marks that I've been leaving around on the course, the more issues I've had with the Agera. It was better than I thought it was going to be. It was easier to drive than I perhaps expected. You kind of expect this one to be utterly bonkers. It isn't utterly bonkers, but it is quite slidey. You just lose that little bit of time here and there trying to get the power down out of the corners and sort of fighting the car. It's okay, but yeah, there's just too much wheel spin, too much sliding in that one. Up next, the Pagani Huyra. This car did not drive at all how I expected it. It is in fact the least powerful car here, only 700 horsepower in this one, 737 torque though, so yeah, still mighty fast. Now I was expecting this to be much more like the Agera, a bit slidey and so on. It actually isn't. This drives really nicely, suits my sort of driving style. This car is actually quite understeery. I wasn't expecting that from a 700 horsepower rear-wheel drive Italian hypercar, but yeah, it is quite understeery. It doesn't really like sliding around unless you really make it, but again, much like the Venino, there just isn't quite the power in this car. It's just not quite like the other cars were doing 130, 140 into this corner. This one is about 120 and a bit. It's just not quite got the speed, and even on a short circuit like this where it is all about handling around here, it's just not quite the power, not quite the acceleration from the Huyra. And then we come to the utterly bonkers Venom. 1,200 horsepower, 1,155 torque in a 2,600 pound car at its rear-wheel drive. It's as crazy as you would expect. It really, the Agera was a bit slidey. This is very slidey. You've got to be so careful trying to put the power down. I mean, the second you do get the power down, it absolutely flies. It's 156 miles an hour into this corner. On my fastest lap, I actually ran a little bit wide there, but there is just so much acceleration in this car. If you can survive around the corners and then get it to an acceleration zone, it absolutely flies. 140 almost into the braking zone. That's me struggling to put the power down. It is it's just such a crazy car driving this one, and so much more difficult than everything else. But if you get it right, it is still pretty damn quick. 51.8, I tagged the wall on the final lap, just getting bounced around across the bumps. It does only manage 5th, though, for the Venom. With the lap times, well, the LaFerrari takes victory ahead of the Mclaren P1. The Porsche came in 3rd. The Venino did remarkably well. Let's not forget, the Venino is some 40 PI off some of these cars here, and that's 0.1 of a second behind the Porsche. I think it's 20 PI lower than the Porsche, 0.1 of a second. That is how good the Venino handles around a track like this. I was amazed to see the Venom up in 5th, a 51.8, on a track that is such a handling circuit. There is still so much speed. Just the second you go anywhere near an acceleration zone, the Venom is off. Yeah, it's somehow you've got to really hold it together though for that one. Then we have the Agera ahead of the Veyron and the Huyra at the back. Now for the next circuit, we're going the completely opposite end of the spectrum. This is the high-speed circuit in Castelletto. A very fast track, this one. There's one really rather long straight, and the rest of the track is all high-speed stuff. You're rarely below sort of 130 miles an hour around here, so complete opposite of the Citadel Circuit. Again, another track that I do quite like, and in the Porsche, well, there is plenty of grip, and it's pretty easy to race it around here. Four-wheel drive is nice and almost safe through the corners, again on power delivery out of the turns. Although a circuit like this, we're going at a lot higher speed apart from this final little bit here, so wheel spin is less of a problem anyway for the rear wheel drive cars. As we slide a little bit around the final corner, we head down towards the straight. just that little bit more weight in the Porsche. It's just not quite sort of as fast accelerating, getting down this really rather long straight. Similar problem for the Venino, not really weight, just a general, I say a general lack of power. It's down on power compared to the cars that we are racing it against, but again, it is so good through the turns. When you get things right with this car, it is absolutely incredible. It's tough racing the Venino against the other cars. The Venino really struggled when we were doing the race. The problem being is that this can be so fast through the turns, but if you're behind, let's say the Veyron, you can't use that speed through the turns, and then the second you get to a straight, everything ditches you. But when you're on your own and you're hot lapping, this can carry some serious corner speed. You can brake so late into the turns around here. It is a really very good car to drive, but it lacks that acceleration. It lacks that straight line speed as we come down the back straight. I would say it lacks its straight line speed. It is still a phenomenally fast car, but all is relative to the vehicles that we are racing. Now, on to the Veyron. You would expect this track to favour the Bugatti with such a long straight. It is going almost 200 miles an hour by the time we come to the first corner. But there is a problem, and that is we still have a lot of understeer, and honestly, I think this is scarier to drive here than it is to drive at the Citadel Circuit. The problem is that the fast corners, you just cannot get the Bugatti through. It just does not like going through these turns. I'm quite surprised looking at the speedo there, how much speed I carried through that first part of the chicane, because it felt so scary and felt so much. It felt like you have to be so much slower through these turns just to get the car around them. You really fight it. Like, these turns aren't too bad because they are relatively slow for everything. You have to really make sure it's stopped. And then you can kind of use it like a point and squirt car with the slower corners. But with the high-speed sections, the Bugatti did struggle. Yes, once you got it out of them, you could fire it along here, and it was very quick. But the high-speed corners are terrifying in this car because there is just miles and miles of understeer. Back to the McLaren, pretty damn fast in the straight line, not that far off, only about 7 miles an hour off the Bugattis. That's how much you can carry so much speed onto the straight with this car that the power of the Bugatti doesn't really have enough time to work. And then we come to the corners, and the McLaren is a good car to drive. It is a very good car to drive. 172 miles an hour through that first part, 180 up the hill there. It's very fast. The gearbox is pretty good on this car. It's got lovely short gear ratios in the McLaren up until 7th. 7th gear is then very long. So for the rest of this circuit, the gears are lovely. There's a couple of times where you kind of want to put it up a gear, or you go into 7th, and then you feel like you just start losing out because it's not quite perfect gear ratios. But for the shorter, the more acceleration, it is pretty good. And through the turns, it is such a lovely car to drive around here. And it was followed by the LaFerrari again, another fantastic handling car. These high-speed turns held no fear for the Ferrari. A fraction slower than the McLaren, but it's barely noticeable on a circuit like this down the back. I think about 2 miles an hour slower than the McLaren down there. And then we come to the twisty bits. It is just really very good through these turns. It's a similar sort of speed through this bit. It's perhaps a little bit down on the McLaren's actual sort of corner speed, if you like, on the really high speed bits, but it does make up for it through these lower speed corners, and just a little bit on acceleration, I think, out of the turns. And it's just easier to be more precise with this car. It's just that tiny bit better to drive than the McLaren. It's not by a huge amount, certainly, but it's just ever so slightly better around here. You just feel a little bit more confident with driving this car again, about 189 miles an hour into the braking zone. Now time for the crazy Agera. Not that much quicker than the McLaren and so on. This car, it needs a long straight. Like, once it does get up to 190, it'll pull on the other cars easily, but it needs a longer straight to get up to use the most of its straight line speed, and it couldn't quite. This is one of the longest circuits on the game, got the most straights on the game, but it wasn't quite long enough for the Koenigsegg to really shine. Across the crest of the hill there, it's still very, very quick as we come under braking, but then we have to deal with, and you can see the difficulty of the car, the amount of sliding by the amount of tyre tracks I have left around the circuit, a lot more with this than in the other vehicles. Again, you just struggle for outright grip. It gets a big slide on out of the final corner. Yeah, it doesn't quite have the grip of the other vehicles. Not terrible to drive by any means, but it's just not quite as quick. To the Pagani, while the Agera is struggling with oversteer, the Pagani is just struggling for sort of power and acceleration. It's down on power. It's a couple of 100 horsepower down on the likes of the Mclaren and the Ferrari. You know, you can't expect this car to it's not likely to beat them, certainly. And while it is a lovely car through the turns, I really like the way that it drives. It's not surprising that it can't quite go as quickly. It's still 170 odd miles an hour. That's still not to be sniffed at through there. But I mean, by the time we come to the braking zone here, even with the Koenigsegg being scary and everything, the Koenigsegg was still getting a higher speed than the Pagani. A lovely car to drive, slightly out of its depth with this lot, but it wasn't that far off because it was a nice enough car through the corners. I could try and make up some time through the turns, but yeah, ultimately just a little bit too down on power for the Huyra. And from the Pagani to the terrifying Venom. So everything else was getting about 190-ish miles an hour. This was doing about 212 or something by the first turn. It is so unbelievably fast when you get it going in a straight line, but you have to really fight. You really fight the car through the rest of these turns. I mean, it was 160 through here in the Ferrari, might have been faster. You just can't take that sort of speed in the Venom. Again, we're not as quick over the crest of the hill, but once we are over it, we've powered down and we're up to 190 again before this next corner. The second you get this car in a straight line, it is so fast. It's quite ridiculous, the Venom, but then you have to be really, really careful, really tentative around the slow corners, and certainly this corner up here, got to really be careful. Still sliding, it's much the same as we were having with the Agera. Still get a little slide out of there, and then we're firing it down here. It's crossing the line at the same speed the Veyron was doing down here. That's just how fast the Venom is. But it wasn't fast enough to beat the Ferrari. The Ferrari can just carry the corner speed. Admittedly, it got bloody close at 53.4. The Venom is, though, by far the hardest car to drive here. Everything else isn't that bad. McLaren, not far back, only 0.4 of a second behind the Venom. The Porsche falls to 4th. The Venino still very, very close to that Porsche. Lamborghini setting very similar lap times, despite being down on power and straight line speed. That's not bad, 55.1 from the Lamborghini. The Agera just slid around a little bit too much on the exit of corners. The Huyra was just struggling a little bit with straight line speed, and the Veyron is down the bottom. I'm surprised to see the Huyra ahead of the Veyron at a straight line speed circuit, but the Veyron's understeer was just too great. So, to a sort of scientific conclusion, I gave the cars points based on their finishing position in each of the rounds, and the LaFerrari came out on top, while struggled a little bit on the drag race. The amount of corner speed you can carry means that through both of the circuits, even the high-speed one, the LaFerrari could take victory. Admittedly, that was only just from the Venom, because the ludicrous acceleration in that Hennessey means that it could set a very quick time at the high-speed circuit and still maintain an okay time at the short, twisty place. And of course, the drag race, well, it was only 100th of a second off the Veyron. The Mclaren P1 and Porsche, both similar stories, actually. Both very good cars to drive, very easy cars to drive around a circuit, but the P1 is just not quite as fast as the Ferrari. A little bit faster than the Porsche, though, but yeah, neither of them can quite keep up with the Ferrari's corner speed. The Veyron comes in 5th, but that's saved entirely by its traction and straight line speed, as give it a corner, it has all sorts of issues. The Agera impressed me, actually. Easier to drive than I was expecting it. Good straight line speed from the drag race. Yeah, we struggled a little bit with power delivery around the two circuits, but still went pretty quick. I mean, around the Citadel Circuit, it was a second off the LaFerrari. That's not bad at all from the Koenigsegg. The Venino is such a good handling car. It was 0.1 of a second, 0.2 of a second off the Porsche at both circuits. That's impressive from the Venino. No straight line speed, but impressive handling. The Huyra, it didn't have the handling, and it didn't quite have the speed. So unfortunately, it's still a good car. I like that. I was, again, another car I was impressed by the way it drove. I like the way the Huyra drives, but it's just not quite as quick as the cars it's competing with here. So for a scientific conclusion, the LaFerrari is the best car. Yes, after 190 miles an hour, it will run out of steam, but on a normal circuit, that's not going to be a problem. You very rarely go up to them or exceed them speeds by a large amount for any length of time at a normal circuit, and the brakes are so good, the handling is so good on this car that, yeah, around a track, even the high-speed circuit, the Venom was unable to topple it. But for the non-scientific conclusion, if you were to ask me which car would I have out of this lot, as much as I'm impressed by how quick the Ferrari is, as much as I love the way the Porsche looks and I love the way the Venino drives, I couldn't sort of avoid the allure of the Venom's power. It is just such a fast accelerating car, even at short circuits. It is such a ridiculously quick accelerating vehicle that yeah, I don't think I could. I don't think I could avoid it at all. It's incredible. You saw her in the drag race. It's just in a different league to the rest of these vehicles. The way it tears after the Veyron is mighty impressive, and because it has got so much acceleration that even on a tiny circuit, it can go within 0.8 of a second of the LaFerrari. Yeah, I am still mightily impressed with the Venom. The LaFerrari may well technically be the best, or is definitely technically the best car here. I would still have the Venom though, because of the utterly bonkers acceleration. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.